Hey kids, welcome to the first Glen Yaps of 2025. I'm not going to talk about the 224. It was a pretty good year. Some weird stuff happened, but for the most part, pretty good year. I'm just going to talk about the music side of things a little bit. Um, so the band Soundcheck, which I've been part of for almost 8 years, but it was a merger from a previous band with almost all the same members in a band called Morningwood. So basically, I think 10 years. I think I've 10 or maybe even 11 years I've played with the combination of those two bands. Anyways, Soundcheck finally came to an end. It was a good run. Towards the end, it was basically it was done, and it was just going through the motions. But it was a machine. It just kept going and going. We were playing every weekend for the most part. Even with the COVID lockdowns and stuff, when the government opened things up, we were one of the few bands to keep plowing through. So I'm going to start with some of the good things. First, I joined that band not as the original drummer. I was, even the previous version of it, the Morningwood band, I was not the original drummer. I think with the first band I might have been second or third, and Soundcheck I might have been third or fourth. But needless to say, I knew the guys in the band for decades and decades. How I got into, I took a breather from the Morningwood band, so I actually walked away from it. The main guy, Terry, the guitar player, was running that band. They're both his bands. He started a second band, Soundcheck, so he was running both bands, but this goofy thing is the bands were playing similar songs, so I said, you know what, this is stupid to keep doing that. It's just, it's redundant. So I took a breather from it, and then I might have been off for a year from playing with. I was playing with other bands at the time, and I got a call to do a fill-in for them out at this wedding and for Soundcheck, and so they had already had drummer issues. So long story short, I ended up being back in the band after they asked me. So the good thing about the band, the musicians, my opinion, the lineup that I joined Soundcheck with, which was Travis, Paul, Terry, and myself. No offense to anybody else, but that was the best lineup of that band. Very talented group of guys and versatile players. The lead singer, Travis, he could play bass, he could play guitar, a fantastic singer. It did great for quite a while, and then internal things started to happen. One thing about bands, there's always drama in bands, always. Anybody who says there isn't is full of shit. All bands have drama, big, small, whatever. It happens. It's a machine. It's a working machine, and sometimes we get disgruntled people. I've been disgruntled. The other people have been disgruntled. You can't get around it. It's just the way it is. That's band life. Most people in the audience don't understand that. They don't see it in most cases, but believe me, it is always there in some capacity. I'm not here to dig into the dirt because I could write a book on 10 and 11 years in this band, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, anyways, so my opinion though, that lineup that I joined with the members I just said was the best. When things started happening internally, and we had to regroup and replace musicians. All these musicians that came in brought their own signature to the band. The bands, no band in most cases, will never be the same, even if they change one member. The chemistry changes, because no two musicians are alike. So it always brings something different to the table that the remaining members have to adjust to, the new member has to adjust to, and that's just the way it goes. In most cases, the transitions are smooth. In most cases, they work. They don't always work. But we kind of lucked out, like the musicians that came in to the group as others left. Although the chemistry of the band changed on a personal level, but also musically, because different tastes, different styles, it actually works pretty good. But the popularity changed after the main lineup that I was with. When that changed, we lost a good portion of our audience, and it was going to take time to rebuild that. And sometimes it just doesn't go back to where it was. People are fascinated by that one lineup, and it just doesn't work the same way with the others. But we did gain fans back. So for me, the musicianship, the talents of all the players throughout, including fill-in players. We had a lot of fill-in players, all talented. To fill in for Soundcheck is not an easy task. But the people that did fill in, the list is endless. Great bass players, and there's so many bass players that filled in. There's at least 7, I believe, 7 bass players, and we had a few singers. We even had 3 girl singers at one time filling in. It was really interesting. So for the most part, all that worked well. It was frustrating, I cannot lie, because I'm one of these people that likes a very tight band. Tight bass players with tight drums. It's just, that's where I like it. So having bass player fill-ins and stuff was a little bit of a nail biter for me, but we survived it. I remember having 5 fill-in bass players in the summer. I don't think it was this summer, it was the previous summer. 5 bass players in 1 month, just filling in. So the other good thing about the Soundcheck thing that appealed to me, and I can't speak for anybody else in the band, but I'm assuming the guitar player was in the same frame of mind, which is Terry, is that we felt we were old enough and experienced enough that we didn't have to have band practices every week. And we're not talking on an ego thing. We just felt comfortable in learning the songs ourselves on our own time and away from the band, and just go on stage and cold turkey count that song and go for it. And I love that, because the challenge ends up on my shoulders because I'm the one that's going to count that song in. And if I don't at least have an idea of what the hell I'm doing, it's going to be either a shit fest or it's going to work. So the responsibility lies on each of the individuals to know their part, because you're doing it cold turkey on stage in front of an audience. Without a lie, in all of the years of Morningwood and Soundcheck, with my time frame in there, I believe we had like 3 practices in Morningwood for me to learn the songs and stuff. I didn't want that, but it was mainly to work on vocal harmonies. When we got Soundcheck going, when I joined Soundcheck, we had like 1 basement practice, and we might have had 2 other practices with that singer Trav. And again, just for some weird hard material. And then we had 1 or 2 with the new singer Cameron. And that's pretty much it in 11, 12 years. So if you ever saw the band live, you're looking at a band that did jam nights on Thursdays at one bar and played Fridays and Saturdays. And sometimes there was a 4th night thrown in, along with special events and touring. We did all that stuff without band practicing. And I truly loved that, because I've had so many bands and been part of bands that rehearsed in the basement for weeks, months, and even years, only to go on stage, play 3 gigs, and break up. Or do all that work in the basement, go on stage, and the band, for whatever reason, chokes. Well, when you put it on a calendar, it's wasted time. And I swore I never, ever, ever wanted to go back to just a band in the basement practicing once a week, only to play 5 shows a year. Now, I did have a good band, the Peace Vibe, that we practiced once a week like royalty, and it was actually fun. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that more than actually playing with the band, because the problem with the gigs with that kind of music, we were a 60s tribute band, you couldn't get steady shows. It was sporadic, hand-picked, plus scheduling. But that was the one band that one of 2 that I loved practicing in the basement with. It was quite enjoyable. Soundcheck, I never liked the practices we had. They didn't seem to accomplish anything. So if we had like 8 or 9 practices in that 11 years, maybe 1 or 2 were, we got something accomplished that we couldn't have done live. The rest were a waste of time. So anyways, that was a great part of Soundcheck, because musicians, especially in that first lineup that I was with, everybody did their homework. You walked on stage and you might flub one little spot, but the musicians were experienced enough. They looked around. We got eye contact, even hand gestures, whatever, to get through it. Nothing was ever a major train wreck. And I know Terry liked that, because and for the same reason as me, the time you saved spending 3 hours a week or 4 hours practicing in the basement with a band, you could use it for something else or learning your own stuff. So I miss that. I probably won't see that in another band ever. But that is my mentality. I'd rather that. The other thing is, we had a massive song list. Um, and a lot of that was gained by doing jam nights, because we would just kind of make the song up on stage. We all kind of heard it before. Say you're doing a Brian Adams song, we all kind of knew the song. We have access with phones and iPads to the lyrics online. So you could wing these songs. A person in the audience would say, "You guys kind of know this Nazareth song, you know?" And we'd all look at each other and say, "Yeah, we could probably get through that." So we fake it, and it would sound pretty good, because we had no fear. Whether it was going to crash or burn, we had no fear. We were going to go for it. So a lot of those songs may not have been note for note, because we did them on a jam night as a request, and we made it up on the spot. We made the song our own. Now we were for the most part note for note kind of musicians, and that's a pro and a curse. In my younger years, everything was note for note, and I still learn the basic song that way. But I like to develop it with a few of my own things in now. And I get shit on for that. Every musician gets shit on for that. But the problem is, I've been playing some of these songs for 30-something years, and I am bored to death of them. They're fun to play, but I have to add something of my own to keep my interest. And I think a lot of musicians, when they reach my age, which I'm in my 60s, is... I got to find out I got to put my own stamp on, we'll say, but I also want to find out if I've got some creativity to add a little to these songs. So a lot of that stuff was what we call morphed music that we adapted to our song list. So if you saw us, we didn't play it the same way as other bands. So that was another bonus to me, because it made us different than the other bands, because a lot of bands in this area play the same songs. And also our audience, our fans, they're great. For the 11 years I've been in it, I saw them change. When members change, especially lead singer changes, that's a tough bridge to cross, but it did work out. But it comes down to the musicians that replace the others. Were they capable of doing that same thing? And some of them struggled with it, and they'll be the first ones to say that, because it's not a normal band procedure to just rip a song out of the air, go and do it, jam it without knowing it, or having somebody guide you through it on stage. That takes time. It's something you got to get used to. I learned it years ago from playing in blues bands and rock swing bands. So some of the members that were later members found that difficult, and they would always cry for a band practice, and Terry and I would no, we're not going to have band practice. Even the audition for the singer that replaced our main singer, which Cameron replaced Travis, his audition wasn't in a basement. It was a live on stage, full audience. Everybody that auditioned for that band to replace Travis basically did a cold turkey on stage, stakes and all. It's the way we like it. So for me, we had a lot of bass players in the band, but also, I should say we only really had I'm going to say 2 main bass players. The last one being Jim. We had a fill-in guy, Rob. We always used to call him the 5th Beatle, because he was always filling in for Paul. So Paul was the best. Um, we had our differences at the end of our relationship there, but as a musician and a bass player, fantastic bass player, and I will never ever say one bad thing about his playing. His playing was consistent. I used to call him Mr. Consistency, and he had chops, just endless chops. Great bass player, and definitely one of the Sioux's finest. So the downside of the Soundcheck thing, and what I really wanted to leave the band 2 years ago. And one of the biggest peeves for me is song material. And I've always been one to have everyone have a say in material. But unfortunately, Soundcheck and the previous version, Morningwood, were run by one person and one person's tastes, and that just got tiring. There's no creativity there if you're always having to follow orders to do someone else's material, being one person. It doesn't create any excitement for me, and it was really difficult. Now, I've been a hired gun in many situations, but when you're spending 11 years with somebody and you get 4 songs, and this goes for the other band members, it's a tough pill to swallow. I mean, the machine worked good that way, but it was one of the pet peeves all the musicians had within the band. You know, we want to do something that excites us equally to the songs you picked that excite you, and it just never happened. So 2 years ago, I was at my wit's end, because it was like, for me, it was stagnant. And I can almost predict that was our audience starting to fade a little bit because of that. And then in the last few years, we ended up falling into the trap of not learning new, fresh material on a regular basis. And I'm going to say this about most bands I see in Sault Ste. Marie and elsewhere, because even when I toured, I remember seeing bands, they would play I hate to use the term milk the same songs, but it's a fact. Bands milk the same songs. So when you start playing songs for decades on end, your audience, eventually they're going to need pillows because you're putting them to sleep. I just could not get that point across. And it was boring the hell out of me, and it was boring the audience, So I was always forever trying to get the band to, pick up their socks or I should say pull up their socks and new fresh material, please. And it just wasn't happening. Sporadic ones would come in because of jam nights, like, we rip it out and stuff. But yeah, in 11 years I had 4 songs, and we weren't even playing. We played 2 of them, and one was from way back, and then it kind of got tossed and then brought back, and then I think I picked one country song. So frustrating. That was it for me. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if you know what you're getting into, but and we all did, but it just came down to I couldn't take it anymore. And then when we changed singers, the music started changing again, because the singer couldn't sing some of the rock stuff. He was great at doing country and some rock. So our set lists had to change accordingly, and that's a normal transition. That's normal for drummers, that's normal for guitar players, bass players, keyboard players. You adapt. You have to adapt to the people that are now in the band from the previous guys and gals. So that's what we did. We adapted and we worked at it. We got it sounding really good, and we put lots of time into trying to nurture the direction of these new musicians in the band. And that was stressful for me because I'm older, and I know it was stressful for the guitar player too, because we were on rails before. We could just go on stage, count it in, and away we go. This time we had to kind of nurture it to get people in the band, the new people in the band, used to how we operated. So that got really frustrating. You'll never know how much, but I got gray hair because of it. Because I never had this gray hair before. So, but you try and work for the group, right? You try and help the group go forward. And unfortunately, the mentality of that group thinking, it dissipated in the last few years. It was almost like every man for himself. And that was sad. I could see it happening, and it was like, okay, I definitely want out. So that was 2 years ago, but I stuck it out. There was like some fun gigs that happened. A new group of fans kind of walked in and joined our musical journey, and so I kept sticking it out. And I was enjoying the jam nights for the most part, because it brought up different musicians that I could play with our band, and I could play different material, and it was like a stretch because we were kind of locked in this lazy zone where we weren't doing new material. And you can only smile and try and play it like it's the first time you ever played it for so long before it's like, oh my God, I cannot stand this song. I almost want to throw up that I have to play it again. I just could not get the band to get out of that. So I can't speak for them, but they obviously had something else on their minds, and it wasn't the same as what was going on in my head. I wanted fresh material like every 2 weeks, and it just was not happening anymore. The other downfall is I am more of a person that prefers to play venues that or gigs that are not related to weddings, stags, that kind of thing. To me, that requires a different kind of band. Like we used to call them wedding bands. And I played in one or two of those. But always had a rock band as an option. Or a country band, whatever. But we were one of these bands that would dabble in, try anything. Just throw ourselves out there and see if it works. And I just never liked those gigs. We met some great people at these events, but they weren't there to see a band. They were there for the loved ones, the party, within the tables they were at, the gift giving. The band was like a piece of furniture, is what I felt. And we did have some bad gigs too. So I know for me, my future now is I will never do those ever again. They're just not in it, in my heart for that. You have to play a particular way. The people that hire you are particular on the songs you play. And let's face it, I'm a rock musician that loves freedom in music. But I also grew up playing lots of jazz. Or jazz is where I can express myself. And I found that I could not do that at these types of gigs without causing ripples, we'll say. So I had to play it by the book somewhat, but the response from the audience wasn't the same as bar venues or private parties or a musical event that was specifically a musical event, not a wedding, not a stag and do. So that was my taste. I can't speak for the other guys, but this is where my headspace was. So those were some of the downsides. The drama within the band that was up and down all the time. I'm focused on music. Like, music is it. That machine has to be working. That's where my brain is focused. When I'm on stage, I'm focused on the drums and doing my part. It's not about anything else. Like, I can play on stage with people I love and play on stage with people I hate. I'm there to play drums. I love playing drums or other musical instruments. But in a band situation, I'm there because I love playing drums. I don't have to be the best friend with you on stage, but if we create something great in the music, that's all I care about. It's why I'm in this. I'm not in this to make tons and tons and tons of best friends. It's just, that's an impossible task. Because musicians are such different personalities. Man, I've been doing this since '77, and drastic varieties of people. It's very interesting. I would love to write a book about every person I met as a musician if I could remember them. And it was just, it's an amazing melting pot of personalities, good and bad, whatever. That you could put all your differences aside when I count the sticks for a song and go. Nobody knows in the audience that band might have, they might want to just strangle the shit out of each other, or they're great buddies and love playing together, or whatever. It's amazing. And that's where I like Soundcheck, where you may not like the behind the scenes things, but we all seem to hold it together to do a decent show and continue on. And we have continued on for years and years and years. So through thick and thin. So I think everybody in the band was the root of some problem at some time. So myself included, because I'm a very picky workaholic. Anybody who knows me on a personal basis knows I'm a workaholic when it comes to music. Like, I sleep 4 hours a day, and the rest of that time it's music. Let's look around, it's music. So any Soundcheck, the ending was a welcomed thing for me. I wanted to be out 2 years ago, but I stuck it out. And then in our last lineup change over a year ago, I found the band volume just escalated. It was just beyond what I could handle hearing wise. And the problem is with volume is I suffer from vertigo, and I've had vertigo every weekend since this volume hike. I've been sick after the gigs because of it. I tried to tell the guys in the band this, but the volume doesn't seem to bother them as much, but it was bothering me. So I would have had to have gone and said sayonara because I couldn't handle it anymore. And some bands are loud. I've been in a few loud ones, but this one has gotten to be the loudest. I just couldn't take it anymore. So with the vertigo making me sick almost every weekend, it was like, okay. I talked to my wife about this, and it's like I was going to go give my notice. But it came down to the guitar player wanted a break from it anyways, and it's his band. So it just kind of worked out that the end was now final for Soundcheck. It was his call. It's his band's his call. So we finished off our last show on New Year's Eve, which was like a last second add-on gig. And we're still loud. I still suffered vertigo from it. But now my ears can hopefully have a breather, because I'm not playing in a band live for a little bit. I'm taking a breather. Yeah, so that part of it was frustrating for me, the music thing, and not wanting to be even on the song choices. That alone was enough. Like 10 years of playing someone else's taste in music is that's enough. That's a big portion of my life that I gave to these musicians and to an audience, and not getting something that I would have enjoyed playing. And I have a sneaky suspicion some of the other bands in town are facing that. I don't know if it's surprising how many bands do the same songs. That alone is difficult, for an audience, because you want these audiences, especially after the COVID lockdowns, you wanted these audiences to come and pack the bars again. But if all the bands are playing the same songs, it's like, that's got to be tedious. Now, I don't get to see the bands every weekend, but I watch their videos, so it's like, holy cripes, we're all doing the same song. Oh, we're doing this, we're all doing this song, we're all doing this. Where my own personal bands, I made sure I had something different than the other bands. I'd go out, get all their set lists while watching them, come back, we're not doing these. So pick other songs. You can pick any songs you want, not these, because these bands, 5 of them, already do them. Why continue that? Plus you get a comparison thing between all the bands. But again, I couldn't get that point across. So I had lots of good times and some bad. The bad was starting to outweigh the good, but on the good side, the musicians that I played with, especially the first batch, that kind of chemistry, I'm just talking musically, makes you a better player. It's like these guys do their homework, they're dead on, they are consistent, they are experimental, they are they have no fear. of trying something right out of left field. So my comfort zone, I felt at home there. As the members changed, I felt I couldn't, the band couldn't be as smooth and as relaxed doing that like that first group. And that's nothing against the last musicians of Cameron and Jim or even Rob. They're not from that same type of playing that just fly by the seat of your pants. They're more rudimental, I guess would be the term. There's nothing wrong with that. But my frame of mind was there. So the band did start to loosen up with that and having some fun, but it takes time, right? The bass player Jim, we started having a lot of fun screwing around and bending notes and patterns, and he started to get used to it and having fun with it, and it was fun. But the material is just, and my hearing that was it. I couldn't do it anymore. So it just happened that the bands, we had a meeting, and that's it. That's all she wrote. And for the singer Cameron, it was his first band. Now, he took a lot of heat. You realize how shitty some people are when you take a band that you love and start changing members, because the audience has their favorites, and when you change somebody, it usually creates a rift between the audience and the band, and it just kind of happens. But everybody liked Travis, the original singer, and when we switched to Cameron, he was an unknown, so he took a lot of shit, and he shouldn't have had to have taken that, but he did, because people don't understand, he never played in a band before. He was a solo acoustic guy, and he was thrown into a bee's nest, which is basically what it is. And he had to deal with that. We had to nurse him through that, and even to this day, he still gets grief for nothing else but being a replacement singer. You know, it has nothing to do with his talents. It's just people locked onto this guy. They didn't want change, and famous bands go through that. You know, look at the Van Halen singer change. They still fight on the internet about the Hager and the Roth thing. They still fight about it. The Van Halen fans, they're at each other's throats constantly about this. But anyways, so Cameron had a lot of baggage to deal with that, and he plowed through it. He became a better singer, better performer, better front person because of it. But we had to do a lot of work that was to help him, and yeah, that was a lot of work. So he's more disappointed now that the band is done. He may see why in years to come, but as me being an older musician, it's like it was the babysitting, and I use that term loosely, to make sure things are right. We all had to babysit and make sure he was, you know, connecting with us and learning the craft of being in a band. You don't just walk into a band and, it clicks right away. That very rarely happens. So there was lots for him to learn, and he still got a lot to learn. It just, for me, it was all that, and the other things were weighing on me and my own playing. I wanted something more creative. And so basically with the bands, Terry folded the band. So Jim and Terry have moved on into a project with the two of them. Cameron's got his own country band. I had tried to start something myself over a 3-month period, but I could not get communication and schedules and enough information and all this to jive to make it work. A very strange situation. So I threw in the towel on it. I had high hopes. It would have been a fun thing had it gelled right off the start, but it just did not work. It was just too many elements there that were not connecting. So I basically said, well, that's it for that. I also wanted the band, this project I had started to, or at least on paper, to get it ready for 2025, and it just was not happening. Communication. Kids, communication is key to relationships, to bands, whatever else. If you ain't talking, it's just not going to work. So, got to have communication. So, I'm sad that didn't work out, and now I'm into 2025 and I'm unemployed musically. So I'm now searching for something else to get going. So I do have some plans lined up. I'm just doing fill-ins right now, but after a little breather. So my bands, I've got 2 things on paper, hopefully are going to work. One band is Drones Over Jersey, and another band, Bing Bang Boom. And whether they hit the stage or not, I will let everybody know. But still gathering musicians for that. I was sure hoping for the first batch to work. It would have been a killer band, but like in 3 months there was nothing happening that was positive. And whatever the reasons, all I know is I knew who I wanted, and I knew where I wanted to play. I knew the style of music, and I needed input from everybody, and it just wasn't happening. The bars were wanting the band. I was getting calls from the bars to play and book for 2025, and I couldn't book. It just wasn't happening. So, anyways, to all the Soundcheck fans out there, we appreciate it. I loved playing all the bars for all our audience members. I loved it. And I still do. I still want to do it. I'm not giving up anything. I'm going to fight to get back. I miss that. We cut back a few bookings this last 6 months, and I hated it. I want to play every week if I can. That's why I'm trying to start 2 bands, because schedules are tricky. So if I can get 2 bands with their own schedules, and it won't interfere with their personal lives, if we can just play 2 weekends a month with this band, two with this, and I play all 4, I love it. That'll be fine. If these guys want to play all 4, that's great. I want that, but judging by the reaction I've had from all the musicians that I've touched base with to try and start these new projects, not going to happen. So it's going to have to cherry pick a little bit. We'll see. But the audiences for Soundcheck were amazing. They would follow us for, out-of-town gigs, and we're at almost every gig. They would come to jam nights. And I'm sure they were bored out of their minds by the material. And you know, towards the end when we got lazy, but they still showed up. Some of them showed up at our last New Year's farewell. Most of them said farewell at the previous to that show at Jay's. And yeah, they're awesome. I don't talk much to in the PR kind of thing when you're sitting at the table and stuff. I'm very surprisingly, I'm vocal online, but I'm quiet in person. I feel that I'm playing music for them, and I want them to enjoy what I do or what the band does. And I don't like to interfere with their time in the bar. I want them to have a good time, and if they approach to talk to me, I'll talk. But I don't want to smother them with my yapping. I want them to have a good time, and so I kind of keep a little bit quiet that way. But I'm always in the music zone. You know what? It's like when I go in to play, I turn a switch on. It's all music for me from the beginning right to the end of the night. Then I shut it off. When I'm getting ready to go home, then I can take that deep breath. It's like, okay, I've done my job. I had fun doing it. So a lot of people don't understand that, but I'm very much, my DNA is music. I just got to have that. And I always look serious when I play because I am focused on what I do. I want to make sure I'm doing the best job possible. I have fun up there. I just don't have to laugh and giggle and bounce around and smile and stuff. I'm having a good time, even though it looks like I'm physically dead and unconscious on the stage. That's just my way. Believe me, I love playing in front of an audience. I am not the main attraction in a band, so it's the guys in front, the singers. That's what the singers are what connect to the audience. So, anyways, that's a scoop. So that's the video for this. Lots of people have asked what happened with it. Lots of things happen in a band to send it off into the sunset. You know, just everybody, I think, you know, was just tired of where we were and just wanted something fresh. For me, I already gave you my rundown of it. You'll have to ask them for theirs. But as for the drama, that can't be erased. It's just part of life, you know. You get into fights, arguments, you make up, you move on, or you just ignore it and just deal with it. There's so much shit happens in a band. It's endless. It's endless. You can be nagging about this, that, the other thing, this, that. Bring your home life that sucks to the bar, to the gig with the band, talking about this. It's just endless. People don't understand how much baggage there is in a band, and we have to kind of just put that aside, go on stage, and then play. Whether it's issues between the band or their relationships outside the band, because we've experienced it all. And you just try and make the best of it. And some bands can get through it easier than others. I've seen bands break up after 3 gigs because they're fighting over a band name, you know. I don't really like that band name. We should change it after 3 gigs. They worked in the basement for a year and then they fight over a name and then break up. Yeah, seen that. That's crazy. All musicians are crazy. So I had a good run with it. Tight musicians. I played with some really great musicians in Soundcheck. And I've played in a lot of bands and had great times with a lot of musicians. But this band, especially Terry, now as much as him and I lock horns, as a musician, that guy can play anything. Um, so you can look at his personality, look at my personality. It's like, and you know, put your nose in the air. But for him, in my opinion, great meter, can play anything, and does it well. And he can fake, like we were talking about in this video, of just faking songs on stage. He can fake that stuff. And to just grab a phone, put the lyric sheet up, and sing a song he's never sung before, just because he remembers it, how the melody goes, because we grew up with it, and then sing it. Now, that takes talent. I'm sorry. If you don't think he's talented, well, you're wrong, because he is. But we all have our demons. I have my own. So does this band. So does every other band. And it just comes out sometimes in a band. But as talent goes, that guy is talented, and that made the band enjoyable. If I just had to focus on the musicianship, you know, he was the anchor to keep this thing all together, or the main pivot point. Like, we all just worked around that person. So and like I say, the other guys all had their own talents. It's funny that all these musicians, what they brought to the band was not what the other person brought to the band, which is really why I always call it a melting pot, because when one goes out one door and a new one comes in, it's this melting pot of what do they bring to the table? What will change because of it? Does it bring something good, or does it not? So they all brought something positive. Like fill-in, we had some of the fill-in musicians, like what we call them Bones. Amazing talent. This guy plays guitar. He played fill-ins for us as a guitar player and filled in on bass, and amazing player. And then I remember Corey, there's Pierre, Rob Gilmore. I'm trying to think some. I'm missing some. Alex Dettori filled in for us. Many girl singers. We've had a lot of girl singers. Yeah. Anyways, the list is long for filling in for us and doing a great job. So all those people we got to thank, because they helped us continue on for this length of time. Even though their time in the band was for maybe 2 gigs, a weekend show, maybe, you know, half a set or whatever. A full year. I know we had Rob Gilmore fill in. So all that was a good thing. We always had great talent to get us out of a bad situation. So the downside too is commitment. Some of the members lost the idea of commitment. When you commit to something, you have to understand, when you commit, you're now responsible for the other guys doing a show. And when you bail on that commitment that you made, you hurt the rest of the band. I see this more common in a lot of bands, not just our own. I was kind of surprised when that reared its ugly head in Soundcheck. But so when you commit to the band and you commit to the songs, you commit to learning the songs, and you're a band that works 4 weekends a month or more, and you think that you can be lazy about it or just bail and have someone else hold the bag and try and fix things, that's something I hated to see, and it pissed me off. But I've experienced that in other bands, and I've seen it with other bands. Commitment. If you're in a band, you're committed to your bandmates. If you do something thinking selfishly just about yourself and not the rest of the guys, it's not long before things start to go sour. So we've all experienced that, and those kind of things are hard to get over. So you have all these great times, great band, great musicians, and you still have all this other shit you got to deal with. And sometimes it just doesn't go well. So, but that's my story. I have no regrets. I enjoyed the band. It was fun to do for most of the journey. We had some good gigs. The battery kind of died on that one, so we have to replace my battery. So anyways, so this is it for Soundcheck, but I'm still going to move on musically, just like the other guys are moving on musically. I don't know what is going to happen in the future. I want to be playing as much as I can basically jam into my schedule, which is I'd love to play every weekend and do jam nights, and just like I was doing with Soundcheck for the last 5 years, with the jam nights. Those are a tough thing, but so thanks to it's hard to thank people that were just fill-ins and stuff, which that, and then thank your band members when you're in a band that's winding down and has already splintered into different things, like it was already happening far before the band's final show. But we did have some good times, and hopefully we remember those. But bad times they're like a cancer; they just don't go away. And that's just like tons of relationships we all have throughout life. But on a musical performance level, this was a great time. It's always a pleasure to play with tight, experienced musicians, and it's also good to play and watch somebody evolve. Whereas our new singer, our last singer, main singer now, Cameron, get better through the years. Not everybody does that. Some people, they try, but they fail. But I mean, Cameron has definitely advanced in leaps and bounds since his first gig. If you ever want to just see comparison, you watch a New Year's gig at the Water Tower 2020. Vocally he's fine, but he's like stapled to the floor. So Now you can't staple him to the floor because you can't catch him because he's all over the place. So that is showing somebody who has a voice and a talent, but not the, as Terry would say, not the full package, because you have to develop your stage persona, being a lead singer and stuff. So yeah, he basically he's the one you're going to notice the most elevate to a different level. The rest of us, we're all basically kind of set in our ways anyways, and I hate to use the term loosely, but it's just a band, and it's not something, I mean, it's something we've all done before, except for Cameron. So, but anyways, that's the scoop. Thank all the musicians that have set foot in this band, fill-in wise, as permanent members. The good times are really good, and hopefully, you know, people remember those good times, good performances. So one thing about being older musicians is we're stubborn. We're all stubborn. That is a fact of life. I find, though, as the most stubborn musicians, they're usually the most stubborn and dedicated seem to go together. I don't know why. If you get over the stubbornness part, then you usually got a few good years in there. But anyways, thanks to everybody that was passed through this band with their talents, whether it be fill-in or, like I say, regular member. So all those people that came out to our jam nights, those were a task and a half, but we made a lot of good friends, and we got lots of talent that were just hiding in the basement to come out and play on stage. And we also met a lot of musicians from different cities that came to jam nights. Some are good friends of ours, and some from the U.S. that came up and jams. A lot of great drummers that came up and from U.S. side and come over and jam with the band. I got to just sit and watch and behave. Yeah, so all that was a good time. And I wish drama didn't happen. I wish that, like I say, it's a cancer. I wish that didn't happen. I wish things like that could just get out of the picture, but we're dealing with human beings, and human beings are always unpredictable, every single one. So sometimes you can deal with it, sometimes you can't. So, but thanks for listening to Soundcheck for all these years, and Morningwood prior to that, because that was a fun band too. With our singer there was Steve Flint, another great musician. So it just wait for the new projects from all of us to hit the stage. None of us know what the other person's doing, and how their bands are sounding. So, well, I guess we'll all figure that out when they start posting the ads online. I know I won't be ready for a while, so. All right, so that's it. The wind down. 2025, first post. It's a farewell post, unfortunately, for Soundcheck, but hopefully something good comes out of it. Peace, everybody.